Hey everybody, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Cloak and Dagger video. I know there's lots of questions about where this falls relative to the finger snap, so I'll try to explain that. Jeff Loeb from Marvel has explained where pretty much all the TV series fall relative to the snapshot. Obviously, spoiler warning if you haven't seen it yet, but they debuted during a Spider-Man title. It was Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, number 64. So under most circumstances, they'd be popping up in New York City, but Jeff Loeb, who handles all the Marvel TV series, basically said that the snapshot is happening after all these TV series.
With all 6 stones, I could simply snap my fingers. They would all cease to exist.
Tony.
There was no other way. We're in the end game now.
Okay.
So when you see all this stuff happening in the flashbacks, this is really like the early 2000s because she whips her flip phone out, so that kind of helps date the series a little bit. So it's really like an untouched period in the Marvel universe because you have Captain Marvel stuff happening in the 90s, you have Ant-Man and the Wasp stuff that was happening back during the 80s. But the big thing they want to let you know is that they're just completely messed up, and I think, part of the idea is that they'll help make each other whole. Because the creator of the characters said that the whole idea behind the two of them is that they're supposed to embody all these ideas of fear, misery, hunger, and longing. So like when they come together, they'll make each other better. So in the way that opposites attract, like they had a really big twist at the end of episode 2, like they keep finding each other through really weird circumstances. But really, they spend the first 2 episodes just sort of setting the scene, letting you know what's going on with the characters, what their damage is. Like, I love the way that they make Tandy the really crazy one. Now, Tyrone did go off the rails during episode 2 when he went after his one-armed man, so to speak, with the gun. Like, he has the man with the scar that killed his brother that he's going to be pursuing for what seems like the rest of the series. We have Roxxon Corporation, and then we have the origin of their powers. So they have changed a couple things from the comics. But if it wasn't clear, this is all happening in New Orleans, so it's basically a new area of the Marvel Universe that we haven't really seen on a TV series before, so it's a little easier to explain like why Spider-Man isn't swinging by if he was such a big part of their original debut in the comics. But you have to imagine that this is happening relatively close to present day, like Daredevil, Luke Cage, all the Netflix series are all happening relatively close to present day, but right before the snapshot. The way they open with the ballet, though, that is a comic book thing. Like, being a ballet dancer is a big part of Tandy Bowen's origin story in the comics before she got her powers. So she and Tyrone in the comics got their abilities through this special experiment. There was sort of a medical basis for it. So they're not technically mutants, but they draw their power from the Dark Force. And most of you probably saw that when you saw the Roxxon refinery sort of collapse in on itself. Like, hey, wait a minute, that kind of looks like the thing from Agent Carter, which is basically what they're doing. So way back in the 40s, during Agent Carter, the Roxxon Corporation was experimenting. They found the Dark Force by accident. The way that Tyrone talks about poison is actually a literal thing, like the Dark Force can actually poison you, but he finds a way to cleanse himself of that via Tandy, so you kind of see what's going on here. The whole thing with the light daggers is that, yeah, she can stab people with them, but her light force, which is sort of like the polar opposite to the Dark Force, can purify people of poisons and toxins. So for Tyrone, that becomes a psychological thing, but it's also a literal thing too. Like, if you're literally poisoned, she can help heal you. Pretty much a parade of WTFs through the first couple of episodes, though. Like, they just want to let you know how hard up they are. So you see her snorting pills in the abandoned church. The church is right out of the comics, but the pills is a new thing. I think they just want you to know that she's doing painkillers that it seems like she found at that rich dude's house. They also do a good job of letting you know that they've both been screwed over by their circumstances. In Tyrone's case, it's the police cover-up and this literal bad person that seems like he's a vice cop who has a mysterious uncle who we may find has ties to Roxxon, who at least initially is just the villain of Tandy's story because her father was a scientist at Roxxon, probably experimenting on the Dark Force, trying to study it before things went crazy. So as big corporations do, they sort of railroad her and her mom after her father's death, and it becomes this big analogy for the Exxon Valdez big oil spill, like big natural disaster, let's blame it on the guy that just died. I think they made it pretty clear, though, that the police are probably in bed with Roxxon, or at least in Roxxon's pocket, so we haven't really met who the actual big villain is going to be. The man with the scar that Tyrone keeps unconsciously teleporting to is probably just somebody's lackey, so that person will probably manifest by the end of the season. Just for reference, there's supposed to be 10 episodes total, so obviously because the first 2 have aired, there's going to be 8 more episodes after this. So 8 more weeks of Cloak and Dagger as far as I know. I don't think there's going to be any breaks in the way that they air the episodes. They haven't quite figured out how their powers work. Like, that's probably going to be another episode or 2 with them just like slowly playing with things. Like, Tandy can't control her light yet, and you can kind of see that there's a cost to her light daggers. It leaves an exit wound on her hand, so she does bleed a little bit. But the funny thing about Tyrone's teleporting is that it seems like he needs darkness to teleport. Like, he can only teleport when he's running from the man with the scar, when he crawls underneath that black tarp. So if you watched other series like The Gifted, they have like 2 twins that sort of have this synergistic ability. When they come together, they give off what they call the Fenris Force, also something from Marvel Comics. But I'm curious to see if they're going to change that for the Cloak and Dagger series. Like, their powers do kind of work together, but they mostly help each other. It's not like they amplify each other's abilities. They've changed the way their backstories and their powers work a little bit in the comics. It used to be that his cloak helped him teleport, but here it's more like a mutant ability where he just gives it off naturally. But like I said, it does seem like he needs a form of darkness to be able to do it. So like he has to crawl underneath his bed sheet in order to be able to teleport. But for maybe the next couple of episodes, he's still going to be doing it unconsciously. Like, he just wakes up in the man's trunk like, how the hell did I get here? What the hell's going on? I'm just going to throw this bag of coke in his face and run away. The thing you have to remember about Tandy too, because she's not in school, so it doesn't date her quite as much, is that she's about the same age as Tyrone. So they're like maybe 17, 18 years old, maybe closer to 17. So all the stuff that she does, like she has this weird codependent relationship with this other grifter while they're stealing stuff, trying to hook up with really rich dudes so she can steal their stuff, taking drugs, drinking. All this is happening while she's still in high school. So like the actress looks like she's quite a bit older, so it's kind of hard to tell. But they're kind of using Tyrone's high school storyline to anchor that. Like, oh yeah, these are actually really young kids while this is all going on. But in the comics, most of the time when they pop up, they're much, much older. They're like late 20s, early 30s. When you see Tyrone touch his mother and go into that weird mind space and watch her nightmare, that's actually something from the comics too. So when he teleports, he goes into the dark dimension and then exits at a different point. But while his powers are active, it also sort of releases the worst nightmares of the people that he's with. So when he's talking to the Reverend about poisoning the man that poisoned him, like maybe he should be poisoned like me, he can actually do that literally. Like he'd actually be able to drive this man insane with his grief. Like when his mother goes into that nightmare, like she probably saw what he saw, but she's so good at suppressing it that you just don't see it on her face. Like she just pretends like it didn't happen. So like I said, that's where Tandy comes in. Like she can sort of cleanse him of that darkness, but like it literally poisons people. So when he's talking about it, it's not just a metaphor. But I think the arc of the series is pretty clear. Like first they learn about their powers, they learn about their relationship with each other. Like, oh, you're the person from that accident from the beach. And she knows, like she's just pretending not to know. Then them dealing with the external forces, like Tyrone dealing with this man that killed his brother, and then Tandy dealing with Roxanne with the help of Tyrone. Like she probably won't be able to do it by herself. They obviously have a couple of seasons of this plan, so they're not going to bring Roxanne tumbling down. Like they're a $1 billion oil company, so it's not like they're going to go away overnight. But the next big step is just finding out who the person at Roxanne is that's ordering all this experimentation on the Dark Force, that sort of orchestrated all the big cover-ups. But that's also where you get into the police, where, you know, we have like this new police female character that seems like she's a relatively good person who will probably find out what's going on with Tandy. Then once she finds out that they're not the bad guys, try to help them out. But like for now, Tandy is still wanted by the law because she's been doing very, very illegal stuff. Like probably one of my favorite moments in the first 2 episodes is where like her friend that she's been with for all those years helping her grift people calls her and says, I've been pinched, I need your help. And she basically just hangs up like, screw you, I'm out of here. Then bam, oh, karma comes back around as Tyrone, who was trying to kill the man with the scar, accidentally teleports to the road right in front of her, almost shooting her in the face. Karma will bite you in the ass, but that's not really what's going on. I think they just want to let you know that they're not going to be able to get too far apart from each other. But if you're wondering why it is Tyrone teleported when he pulled the trigger or when he was getting ready to, it was just because he was having so much cognitive dissonance. Like, he's a good person, so his mind was starting to snap. Like, oh my god, I'm getting ready to kill somebody. And the reason why he keeps mysteriously teleporting to Tandy and this man with a scar is because he's thinking about them unconsciously. It seems like they're kind of on a similar timeline, so by the time he figures out how to control his teleporting, Tandy will figure out how to control her light daggers and her light force. So Tandy's light force is sort of like the lightning rod for Tyrone when he gets lost inside the Dark Force, which is a separate dimension, not to be confused with the Darkhold from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So a couple big concepts: the Dark Force dimension, the Dark dimension, which is a completely different thing. That's Doctor Strange Dormammu, not the same thing as the Dark Force dimension. Then the Darkhold, which was a book of magic written by a demon from another dimension. So you sort of have a lot of Doctor Strange magic ideas bleeding over into the Marvel TV universe. But just let me know what you thought of the series so far. I'm willing to do videos for the other episodes, just depending on interest level. My voice is a little hoarse right now, so it should be better by the time there are more episodes. But what'll happen later today is there was some new Marvel, Avengers, Ant-Man and the Wasp footage that dropped, so I'll do a video for that, but leave all your video requests in the comments below. Click here for brand new Infinity War, and click here to learn all about when Young Justice Season 3 and Titans are going to premiere in that new streaming service that DC is doing.